Okay, guys, the last thing we went over was the progressive era, and now we are getting into imperialism. America builds their empire. So, how do we become the world power we are? Okay, it starts with the Spanish American War in 1898. Now, some of the causes for the Spanish American War are going to include humanitarian concern. We didn't like how Europeans were treating Latin American countries or other countries that they had taken over, like the Philippines and Guam. So we get into a war with Spain. Yellow journalism is another one. The exaggeration of information, right? Making up stories to appeal to the feelings of Americans to get them angry. Now, two people that were known for yellow journalism were two famous journalists, Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst. Okay, now these two are magazine owners. The New York Journal is one of them. The other reason we get into the Spanish-American War is to protect U.S. economic interests in Cuba. All right, we needed their raw materials. And the DeLome letter that was made public, which called President McKinley weak, right? The Spanish ambassador, that's DeLome. And it gets intercepted and it's put in magazines and newspapers, and American public is furious and we're ready to go to war. And the last thing is the sinking of the USS Maine in the Havana Harbor. It mysteriously explodes. We still don't know really what happened to it, but we blame that it was Spain. So again, more animosity towards them, which gets us into wanting to get into a war with them. Now, results of the Spanish-American War, the United States gets three territories: the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. And Cuba becomes a virtual U.S. protectorate, meaning the United States will still have some control over Cuba. Now, why is the Spanish-American War, considered a turning point in U.S. history? Now, this is the only war where we hadn't fought within ourselves. I mean, the last ones where we fought against another country was the American Revolution and the War of 1812, which was like the second American Revolution. So why is this one considered a turning point? It ended Spanish colonial empires in the Americas, and they saw the emergence of the United States as a world power. This is where we made our stand against a powerful country like Spain. Now, United States colonial empire. Now, reasons why we needed to expand was the need for raw materials and markets. The colonies would help U.S. naval strength, right? We would have bases on these little colonies, and that would help us with our navy. Nationalism, a key term, which would show other nations how strong the United States had become. Nationalism, remember, is kind of like patriotism, a sense of pride for your country. And then missionaries sought to spread the Christian religion to other peoples. And this is one of the main reasons why we get to Hawaii, and then why we take that country, or that territory over as well. Now, Alfred Thayer Mahan, he was a leader in wanting to have a strong navy. He wrote The Influence of Sea Power Upon History. He argued for making the United States into a world power. Now, you're going to have those people against us becoming a world power because it goes against the founding fathers, right? The revolution. We wanted to get away from Great Britain because they had too much power. Now it's 150 years later and we're doing the same thing. So it goes against our values as Americans. So he argued for making it a world power. And he also argued that the United States needed a strong army, merchant marine, to protect its colonial interests, right? To protect our interests overseas. Now, U.S. involvement in the Pacific. In the Philippines, we get it with the Spanish-American War. We promise them independence. When we don't deliver their independence, they rebel against us. And they end up getting their independence along the way. But we still have some kind of power in the Philippines, but they have their independence. In Hawaii, Sanford B. Dole becomes president. He overthrows Queen Liliuokalani, which is a monarchy, right? She's a queen. Sanford B. Dole becomes president of Hawaii until it gets completely annexed and becomes a state. The Pacific Islands, they serve as refueling stations for our Navy, right? You can't, I mean, our ships at the time, our vessels weren't as powerful to be able to get across, the seas as fast as they could today. So they served as refueling stations, and we have them in Guam, Samoa, and Midway. And Midway becomes important when we get into World War II. Now, U.S. involvement in East Asia, this is China and Japan. In China, European powers establish the spheres of influence in China, right? Spheres of influence, meaning they have some kind of influence when it comes to their foreign policy in China. And these are European countries. So the United States wants in on this too. John Hay's open door policy, he believed, his open door notes, he believed that, China should just have an open door and anybody can come in and out whenever they please. And that's how it should be done. Now, Chinese nationalists really don't like this. So you have these group of rebels, and they're known as boxers. And the reason we called them boxers was because of their martial arts. We weren't exposed to the martial arts that they had, so we just called them boxers. Now, this uprising by boxers against Western influence in China, there is foreign intervention, suppresses boxer uprising. So they actually go out and kill anybody who is not Chinese, like a Westerner, or if you're Christian, they would kill you, right? So that's the Boxer Rebellion in 1900. And in Japan, you have Commodore Matthew Perry. He opens Japan to trade, ending traditional Japanese isolation. All right, usually they are more to themselves, self-reliant, and we need them again for their natural resources. So we open up those doors as well. Now, U.S. involvement in the Caribbean. Now, reasons for U.S. interest in the Caribbean. Hemispheric security, right? We want to protect the Western Hemisphere. In the Western Hemisphere, the United States is the most powerful country at the time. So we want to protect that, and we don't want European powers to come over and, try to get our people on our side to be with them or to be sided with them. America acquires Puerto Rico and establishes indirect control of Cuba. To this day, Puerto Rico is still a territory of the United States. We want to protect its economic investments, and we want to create the Panama Canal. With the Spanish-American War, it took us 4 months to get our Pacific Navy to Cuba. So we have to find a shortcut, and the way we find a shortcut is through Panama. Now, the construction of the Panama Canal, President Roosevelt helps Panamanians rebel against Colombia for a canal zone. They want their independence. We want a canal. We tell them, attack them, and we'll back you up. And when they got their independence, the United States says, okay, well, we helped you, win. Now give us territory or land so we can build a canal. And they do. The United States takes 10 years to construct the canal, and it ends the need for a two-ocean navy because now we can easily move our navy from the Pacific to the Atlantic, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, right? So it cuts travel time in half. It's the Panama Canal. Now, the Caribbean as an American lake, right? We want to take full control of every Caribbean island that we have there. Now, the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine back in 1820, stated that any European nation trying to interfere or intervene in the Western Hemisphere, the United States would intervene. Roosevelt corollary is, a little bit more to that. And it goes back to his big stick diplomacy. Speak softly and carry a big stick. All right, so, and it's the political cartoon where Teddy Roosevelt is walking through the Caribbean, protecting, okay, anybody want a piece of the Caribbean, you have to go through us first. Now, Taft's dollar diplomacy. He wanted to loan money to Latin American countries so that we have a reason to intervene in their country. All right, so we won't look like bullies. And Woodrow Wilson's watchful waiting. Sit and wait, really not aggressive like the other two presidents. No intervention, and World War I is beginning, so we kind of just sit back and relax. However, this is interrupted by the actions of Pancho Villa when he comes to the United States, kills a couple of Americans, and we send out John J. Pershing to go look for him in the AEF. And then from there, John J. Pershing, we get into World War I, and then he leaves that there. We're never able to find Pancho Villa, and then he goes into World War I.